So you know what? We're going to talk about more of Jaden Daniels, Brandon Ayuk's love affair for Jaden Daniels. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We'll talk about Joe Theismann if we have a chance. We'll talk about. Oh, this is going to make people mad. Yellow pants. I'm sorry, gold pants. The burgundy gold. Let's get this thing started. And welcome back to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs podcast. I am your host, Greg Sykes, along with my best bud and co host, Brandon Scott. And this video, or this podcast rather, is dedicated to using commentary for the Washington Commanders. If you're down with that, please make sure that you have subscribed to this channel. And also, when you do, make sure you hit that notification bell so you won't miss any other video releases, because we do try to release some good stuff. We've been a little bit on hiatus for the last little bit there, so I apologize for that. But, it's not like there's been a whole lot going on. But we do have a little bit to talk about tonight. So, Jaden Daniels, of course, always going to be the hot button topic. Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Hot button topic. He's always going to be a one to talk about. Joe Theismann had some comments to say. We'll get into that as well. But Brandon Aiyuk, Brandon, it's funny. I have, we've seen players in the past that really would rather go play elsewhere, but they just make it kind of subtle, and
Yeah.
usually a lot of times it's just because. They're just trying to wake up their current team and say, look, I've got options. So if you don't want me, if you don't think I'm worth it, I'm gonna go over here. Brendan Aiyuk, though, he's like everywhere you turn, it's like you see him talking about or having pictures with Jaden Daniels, putting HTTR and stuff like this on Windows and but what really took the cake, and the funny thing is that you and I, we saw this on social media, and I'm like, how did he get this photo of the Commanders practice? Apparently, he was at Commanders practice taking pictures, which, how do you let a player of another team in to watch practice? Now, provided this is not like game planning
Yeah.
for a particular team upcoming game or whatever. But I mean, still, still, you're looking at formations, you're looking at potential plays. I'm assuming that they're trying to put in. But what is up with Brandon Aiyuk? I mean, can we just go ahead and sign him to get it over with?
I'll tell you this, man. It's gonna be sort of a long answer, but I think that with a lot of what he's been doing are red flags, in my opinion. I think that there's a way that you convey your displeasure with a team. I think that when you go so public about it, it's kind of like a home wrecker, right? I don't know why you expect he's gonna be faithful to you. He just cheated on the last one with you. So, and it's kind of like that. It's like if he's gonna act like this with his past team, so when you're unhappy here, what are you going to do? Me personally, I think is very unprofessional to do that towards San Francisco because they drafted you, they gave you an opportunity, and yeah, you may be unhappy, but to go so public with it, I think is kind of unprofessional, and I think it's a red flag. Now I get it, he's a very talented wide receiver. I get it, he's got that connection to Arizona, Arizona State with Jaden Daniels. That connection goes way back. They got a friendship, and I think those at one point those were factors where I was like, okay, there's a relationship there. And I think that in the realm of sports, relationships matter. If you look at comments made by Aaron Rodgers about what's going on with Devontae Adams in Las Vegas, when he asked him, where he made a comment where, yeah, I look forward to playing with him again. Where we all know Aaron Rodgers is very cryptic and he likes headlines. So, but look, if you follow anything what's going on with Las Vegas with Devontae Adams, I think there's some real chance he could go. And if you look at Brendan Aiyuk, is there a chance? Yeah, but I think what bothers me the most are a couple of other factors. I mean, he brought Jaden Daniels with him to the meeting with the 49ers. I mean, come on, what are we doing? And then how does he have access to anything for another team? He is still a member of the San Francisco 49ers. Like, she should not even be allowed in the practice. I don't understand that. And I think that, look, I like Dan Quinn. I think he's an excellent head coach. I think he's going to really set a mark here in DC. But I think also it might be one of these situations where maybe he's giving a little too much leeway to Jay Daniels because look, we haven't had a franchise quarterback in so long. People are excited. He's a very talented quarterback who very well could be our franchise guy for the next 10 years. Maybe he's giving him a little too much leeway because he doesn't want him to be unhappy early on. Because sooner or later, him and the GM, Adam Peters, we have to talk to him. To a certain degree, we got to stop all this. You bring your friend in here for access. You go into a meeting with another team. On the flip side, he shouldn't be in a meeting with the 49ers. I mean, that has nothing to do with him. I mean, so I think that they need to talk to him because I get it, franchise guy, but let's be real, he's a rookie. You're giving a lot of responsibility, a lot of leeway to a rookie that hasn't played it down yet. And like I said, I fully believe that Jaden Daniels is going to be a star. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm very excited he's here. Jersey's in the closet right now. I'm ready to watch him, man. I fully support him. But here's the thing, man. You don't carry much clout to be able to go to meetings with other teams with another player. You don't have any clout. Daniel Jones has more clout than you right now because he's actually played it down. So I think they need to have a conversation with him. I think he needs to step back a little bit. And the Brandon Aiyuk situation, is very high risk. They very well could go out there and acquire him. What would it take to acquire him? I think the more noise he creates, the less that it's going to take to get him, man. Because I think to a certain degree, they're going to start to get annoyed with him. If you look at other receivers where, I'm not saying he's in the same sense as a Claypool, Chase Claypool, because he's had issues on and off the field. But I think the trend, what I'm going with is, when you become a player that starts to become a thorn in the side of an organization, then they're going to do whatever it takes to kind of move you at that point. And I think that, with him in San Francisco, it might get to a point where they're like, look, please take Brandon Aiyuk, give us a second round pick this year, second round pick next year, call it a day. But like I said, it draws red flags to me because if you're willing to act like that and you're unhappy with this team, if I'm the Commanders, I'm like, okay, if he's unhappy here, what is he going to do here? And I think it draws red flags. I think you do not conduct yourself like that. If you have to do that behind the scenes. You do not act like that, throw it in the public eye, go into the media. It's one thing to go to a practice. You're going to show a photo? I mean, come on, man. It's like robbing a store and then you doing a selfie in the front, like, whoa, here we go. It's like, come on, man, what are we doing? So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think it's getting to the point where it's very cartoonish and immature. I think Brandon Aiyuk is an excellent player. I think he could do well here in DC. I think Jaden Daniels is a star. He's a franchise quarterback. I think he's going to acclimate very quickly to the NFL. I think he is very talented. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He was raised well. He's a good man. But this little saga has to stop. Because it's getting to the point where it's like, look, man, either trade him or not. But to be so public about it, to me, are red flags.
You almost wonder sometimes, though, is this more of an agent telling the player, hey, this is how I want you to be? All right, people are going to laugh at me with this, but maybe it might be a bad analogy too. But so my whole family loves watching that old Nickelodeon show Victorious, and there was an episode where one of the big time record producers wanted her to, act like a bad girl and dress up in like all of these like Lady Gaga type things because he felt that would give her this popularity and all this and make her a big star. And so I'm using that as an example of with Brandon Aiyuk. You wonder sometimes if some of these player agents say that, hey, you're a pretty good player, but maybe if you turn it up a notch and you start kind of acting a little, not uncontrollable, not on the Antonio level, AB level, but if you just kind of do some crazy things like that to get noticed, and I don't know, but I agree with you. I think it's a little immature, honestly, because I grew up watching guys like Art Monk, James Lofton, guys like that who were not me guys. They were workers, and they went out and they did their jobs, and because of that, they're Hall of Famers. And so I just I like that type of player, and I just Brandon Aiyuk may wind up being all of the greatest wide receivers rolled up into one by the time that he's done. But still, I'm a firm believer in developing your own. And we did draft a guy who is putting in a lot of work, McCaffrey, who comes from a football family. No one's really saying much about him other than, yeah, he's got it in his blood. But he's putting in a lot of work. Between him and Jaden Daniels, they're putting in a lot of work. And so I like the idea of these hardworking, maybe they're not the best wide receivers, but they're the ones who will get you to where you need to go. I think someone on Twitter one day kind of had a discussion as far as, would you rather have a lot of, you know, I guess like superstar level players or just a lot of hardworking, I guess multi-talented or as Ron Rivera used to say, guys who had position flex. Would you rather have guys like that? And I was like, definitely it's good to have some stars on your team. But if I go back and I think about all of those Redskins teams that won Super Bowls, there were a lot of players on there who were hardworking, blue collar players, players that you would never hear about them being in the Hall of Fame. And yet they had a piece of being able to win championships because they played as a team and they were hard workers. We're always going to remember, the Art Monks and Joe Theismanns and John Riggins and people like that. But, you don't really talk about the Mel Kaufmans as much or, just Barry Wilburns and guys like that. So, you need a good mixture of all of that. And so, as much as I really like Brandon Aiyuk, I do, this sort of thing gives me a little pause.
Yeah.
And I think I'm fine with him sticking with the 49ers. I think that it would do better for him to really show the 49ers what he's got this year. And then next year he becomes a free agent because honestly, you're not dealing with the same front office in Washington that you did in years past. Yeah. In years past, Washington would have given up the whole kitchen sink for him now. Whereas I think he's going to be a free agent next year.
Yeah.
So, wait and see what happens. Maybe, because he's going to command a big paycheck. So why give him the paycheck on top of giving the 49ers, high round draft picks? Yeah. Because it's all about building through the draft, building your own team. And so as much as I kind of find it funny with this whole thing with Brandon Aiyuk, it's also a little disturbing for me as well. I'm like, dude needs to chill. Needs to chill. I know that he wants to really play with Jaden Daniels, which honestly gives me a lot of excitement. Yeah. To really see Jaden Daniels in the burgundy and gold. Not the burgundy and yellow, but the burgundy and gold, and not the black and gold. I've seen too much of that on Twitter. Guys, we are not the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're the Washington Commanders. Some of us still refer to them as Redskins. They're the burgundy and gold, so I'm great with the gold pants coming back. I think it's a welcome tweak to the current uniforms. I don't think they're done with that. I think they're going to keep, this is my personal opinion, I think they're going to keep going until we resemble the team that we all used to, we all know good and well, but we'll wait and see on that. But going back to Jaden Daniels, Brandon, there was comments made by Joe Theismann, who actually Joe Theismann made these comments here on this podcast several weeks ago first, but he's been on Craig Hoffman. I know David Harrelson from Locked On Commanders was making a point on this as well, and talking about should Jaden Daniels even play in the preseason. Joe Theismann basically, and again, he kind of made the same comment here. He said Jaden Daniels will not. I don't know if he said will not, but he definitely said he shouldn't play in the preseason, and but he also made some good points about it. Number one, the preseason's so short.
Yeah.
How can you really get a good look at your players, right? I mean, honestly, the preseason really extends into the first couple of weeks of the season
Yep.
because, especially that first week, Brandon, because that's the first time that your starters are actually playing an entire game.
Yep. Yep.
Whereas, when we had 4 preseason games, that third game was the dress rehearsal, and a lot of your starters sometimes played up until almost the end of the third quarter, so almost a full game.
Yeah.
And now, of course, with just 3 games, you really don't see them that much. And so I kind of understand where Joe Theismann's coming from this. But my questions are, number one, how are you going to really be able to know if Jaden Daniels is ready to start week 1 if he doesn't play in the preseason at all? And two, do you go into the mindset of, hey, the first game of the season is basically a preseason game, even though it does count?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the logic, and I understand where Joe's coming from on this as well, especially the fact that they keep adding more games to the regular season. I would almost be okay with them just completely doing away with preseason.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I did mention to Joe in our podcast where I was like, why don't we just have a preseason just for the rookies? Or guys trying to make a comeback or something like that.
Yeah.
He shut that down. But anyway, I mean, so Brandon, I mean, do you agree with Joe? Do you think that we should not have Jaden Daniels playing at all in preseason?
Man, that's a tough question because you kind of see it from both sides. You kind of see it from the perspective that preseason to a certain degree does give them those reps before the season starts. But then when you look at starters, they're not playing. They don't play that much anyways. Most of the time you're looking at guys trying to make the team. You're looking at rookies. You're looking at, guys that are kind of on the border, of making that 53-man roster. So you're not going to see too much of the starters anyways. And you don't necessarily want to, I mean, the starting O-line already has questions. So you don't necessarily want Jaden out there with the second or third team guys, man. So I think that, with them potentially adding more games to the regular season, let's scrap it. Because like you said, even when you go into the regular season, your first 2, maybe 3 weeks, you're still building that chemistry because your first couple games is the first time, first couple games where the starting unit is playing as a cohesive unit. Like you said, the preseason, you very rarely is the first unit playing that much where you're going to establish any kind of chemistry. No, you're going to establish that chemistry. And that's why I see a lot of teams that when they start slow, they build that momentum up because they're building up chemistry, they're building up reps with each other. And that's where, I think training camp, I think you should put more importance on training camp and practice as opposed to preseason because, I mean, you see people get hurt in preseason. I mean, and the list goes on. Guys get hurt, and then, the season's over before the season even starts. Especially when you got guys going down there quarterbacks, man, because the quarterback is the most important position on the field. Nothing to take, not that I'm taking anything away from anybody else, but everybody knows the quarterback is the MC. He's the guy with the mic, so he's the guy that, he's the leader, he's the face, so you've seen a lot of injuries that happened in years past where, guys got hurt. Michael Vick, I remember the year he got hurt where their season was over, and they had a squad in Atlanta, man, back in the day where it was a legit good team, and he got hurt. And it was a Tom Brady one year when they had to roll out Garoppolo. So the list goes on. I think that they should go ahead and scrap it. What's the point? I mean, nobody goes to watches that. I mean, most of the time, if you want to get preseason tickets, man, you can get it through. They pretty much give them away because it's just nobody's going to watch it, man. It just is what it is. It's not going to it's not really a draw that's going to bring money. I mean, so I think get rid of the preseason, put more importance on training camp and practice, man. Even boost, add some things to practice to make them more, attractable to teams where, but I think that's where you get those reps because, both of us play football at one point. I mean, look, his reps are, practice is important. I think that's where the real work begins, man, is practice and training camp. So let's get rid of preseason. Ain't nobody watching it anyway, man. There's a reason why it's on Prime. I mean, I'm just being real with you. I mean, nobody's watching that. I mean, the regular season should be where, because like we both said, they're still kind of slowly getting going by week 3, anyways. So, but I get it from the perspective too that you're protecting the investment. Look, sports right now is $1 billion industry. You're protecting an investment. Nothing against the last 3 quarterbacks we had, but this is a guy that you look at could potentially be franchise quarterback for the next 10 plus years. You gotta protect that investment. You know what I mean? Because Josh Harris, yes, he's the owner of a football team and an NBA team in hockey, but he's a business owner. He became a business owner to make money. That's why you become a business owner. You know what I mean? So he wants to make money. And you watch your investment, you watch your rookie franchise quarterback go down in the preseason, have fun with that, man, because half the fan base at that point already checked out. You know what I mean? And that's it. And unfortunately, that's the real talk right there. That if Jaden Daniels gets hurt in the preseason, your season is over before it even started. So I think that from just the standpoint of protecting your investment and the fact that the preseason just isn't any loved and it's pretty much just whatever. Anyways, scrap the preseason, put more importance on training camp and practice, and go from there.
I'm almost more, yeah, and I totally agree. I think scrap it, and maybe what you can put in place of it are more joint practices with other teams, so that you are getting a feel of going against other teams. It's more of a practice thing. You may not wear full pads. Of course, quarterbacks are not allowed to get touched. So, yeah, I would be okay with that because I think that is still very beneficial. And just roll with that for a few weeks, even if you had to do that like. Well, yeah, I mean, do that instead of the 3 preseason games. Just have like 3 or 4 weeks of joint practices with different teams. You decide between the franchises, organizations, hey, we want to joint practice with you 1 week, and we're going to joint practice with, Super Bowl champions the next week and stuff like that. So you can really get a good feel for how things are, but it's still not basically the full game. Because the thing is that how can your young rookies really get a feel for a full game when they're not going to play a full game in preseason anyway? There's no game planning. There's not really a flow of the football game per se.
Yeah.
And maybe NFL players would be like, "You don't know what you're talking about, man." And fair. But I just feel like since there's no game planning and since both of the teams tend to like roll people in and out so much. How can there be a good flow of game? I've seen so many preseason games where it's like a tale of 2 or 3 different games. You really don't know who's going to win at the end of it because at the end of it, you got your guys who are bubble guys who are trying to make a team. Deciding the game. So I feel like joint practices might be the answer to that. Do those instead of preseason games, and then again, because I know that they're already pushing to try to add an 18th game already to the season. So if you got 18 games, I mean that's a long time, and these athletes' bodies get broken down so much that I think it's unnecessary to play these preseason games. Yeah, you may look at the first game or two and saying, that's a throwaway game for somebody. You're purposely starting them out in a hole because they're just still in preseason mode, basically. And I'm like, well, look at it this way. For the longest time, we had 16 game seasons.
Yeah.
And so, you look at the first week as it's probably not going to hurt you that much if you do drop that game. And even more so, we had 14 game seasons in the 70s and before that. So, if they add an 18th game, then honestly, if you're still kind of trying to figure things out in the first couple of weeks, I think that's okay. I mean, how many times have we seen, teams at the end of the year, they're in the Super Bowl, they are Super Bowl champions, but they didn't start off very good. Kansas City wasn't that great starting off last year. But, they ended the season on a good note. So I just, I kind of see what Joe Theismann is talking about in terms of he shouldn't play. And when he said he won't play, I still think he will. David Harrison, he kind of said the same thing. He's like, I agree. Yeah, I kind of disagree with Joe. I think he is going to play. He probably will. He probably will play for a series, and that's it. But I'm with you. I'm like, there's a big investment on these players, and so I think that you do your best to try to protect the interest and investment in these players. The
Oh yeah,
season's long enough to where you can kind of let things work out for a little bit in the first game or two, and by the third game, you start to see some of the teams, the better teams, figure it out and start playing a little bit better. And definitely by the end of the first quarter of the season, you kind of start seeing a little bit of shift of some of the teams that start off slow but end up hot, vice versa. So, and then you could also argue, well, this is the reason why they're watering down the product and adding so many games,
yeah,
because then you're starting to water down the regular season by not having a preseason game. I
yeah,
see that, but then again, like I said, these starters don't hardly play in the preseason anyway. So what does it really matter,
yeah,
right? And so it's really all about us fans getting a first glimpse at some of these guys and the excitement of that. But after about a series or two, it's like, okay, yeah, this is, he's not ready yet, or this is
yeah,
just sloppy, or yeah, he looked pretty good. But I really want to see how he is in the regular season. I think we all kind of say that.
yeah,
So I think overall, I agree with Joe Theismann. I think, and David Harrelson kind of he agreed as well. Um, I think he shouldn't play. But I think he will for a little
yeah,
bit,
yeah,
and then we'll go with that. But folks, I mean, it's we're getting close. It's hard to believe that we're getting so close as what a couple of weeks away, a week and a half away, or something like that, to
yeah, man.
training camp. So Brandon, man, um, just very quickly before we end this, what are some of the things you're looking forward to in training camp?
Oh man, there's a few position groups that I want to see some progress from. Wide receiver, Jahan, man, this is a really important season for him because he's got to put it all together. Especially if he's the guy opposite Terry McLaurin. We got to see something from Terry or Jahan this season, man. And you can say the same thing about Luke McCaffrey to a certain degree. I know a lot of people are excited because of the name, and for good reason, man. I mean, the dad and the brother ain't too shabby. I'm just saying. So obviously, there's going to be a lot of expectations because, I mean, I remember watching the dad play. I mean,
Yeah,
Ed
me
McCaffrey
too.
was a good receiver for the
Hmm.
Broncos, man. Really good receiver, and of course Christian McCaffrey, man, and against his dad, but could probably go out the better pro, man, because Christian McCaffrey is just that Swiss Army knife at running back, man. So,
Yeah.
I think that the family lineage matters because you know if you look at certain families, certain things like sports or even military. I come from a military family, so everybody going back has been in the military, so there's a certain standard, right? Same thing with sports. The dad, conducted his life a certain way for so long, so the body works there. You see that in the brother in Christian McCaffrey. So you best believe a lot of that's going to flow down to Luke, man. You're going to see a lot come from him out of training camp in this season coming up. So yeah, the wide receiver group, cornerback. I think that cornerback, yeah, you got to see something because you got an assortment of guys that are either A, fighting for their next contract, or B, trying to show that they could be part of the future in DC. Manuel Forbes, we'll see. I'm hoping that he can bounce back this year. I'm hoping we see something from him. I get it. There's always been that question about his body, but then there's reports out there saying that look, he's trying. He's trying to gain weight, and look, I can attest. My oldest son he's got the same type of body. He's skinny. It takes a lot for people like that to gain weight, and then you look at me, it's like I drink a milkshake and my belly shakes for 2 weeks. So it all depends. You know what I mean? So it all depends. I think that I want to see some progression from him. I'm intrigued to see who the starting group is going to be because St. Juice, Mike Davis, the list goes on. So that's another position group that we got to see something in training camp. And I think they will. Joe Witt's going to get them straightened out, and Dan Quinn's going to do his thing. And finally, O line, Brandon Coleman, could he be the guy at left tackle, or will he eventually be moved to guard? I definitely want to see how this O line can function because they're important. They got to protect Jaden, man. And if they're not up, if they don't perform up to snuff, we could see a lot of Jaden Daniels runs this season. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to, Greg.
Yeah, same way here. Definitely, the offensive line is going to be the biggest question mark that I want to have answered. The secondary, I want to see them play better. We can probably say linebacker, but honestly, I don't think we're going to have to worry about linebacker at this point. I think we're good at linebacker, but secondary, we'll have Bobby Wagner back there, and Bobby really hasn't really slowed down much. So
Yeah.
I think I want to see how much the secondary can improve or has improved. So those are the two really the biggest question marks. Of course, we all want to be like, okay, how is Jaden Daniels going to go? I'm actually not worried. I'm not worried if he doesn't have a superstar rookie season. If he just comes out and he's just okay because he's a rookie.
Yeah.
I want to see how he progresses as he gets more experience in the NFL. So I'm actually not worried about him. Definitely not worried about the running back situation. I think we're stacked at running back. I think we're good there. Wide receivers, yeah, again, kind of like what you said. We got 25 wide receivers on our team. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels that way. If you sit down and you start thinking about, wait a minute, oh yeah, I forgot we had Pringle on our team. We got Jamison Crowder. We got Diami Brown.
Yep.
So it's like we still got a bunch of guys who are really competing to be that third and fourth wide receiver. And I'm assuming maybe they keep 5. So.
Yeah.
Who are these guys going to be? Who's going to be the cream of the crop? Yeah, I mean, pretty much agree with all of that assessment, and I can't wait to see how it goes as they play in the burgundy and gold. I just want to make sure that you guys heard me right. I said gold, didn't say yellow pants. I just want to make sure you guys heard that. So, you ribbed me, I ribbed you back, man. So anyway, all right, man. Well, I think that's enough. We will, of course, be ramping things up a little bit more, especially as we get closer to the training camp. So just stick it here to Washington Football Maniacs. You're going to really enjoy what we have for you. All right, Brandon, that's all I got. You got anything else for us?
No, sir.
All right. Well, folks, if you enjoy this video, please give it a like, give it a share. Let us know what you thought of it. And if you thought it sucked, well, you're probably going to tell us that anyway. That's okay. We take criticism like men. So I just go and I cry in the corner after a while, so you don't see that. So anyway, all right, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you in the next one. Take care.